are just different. Like, some people want to go to parties, hang out with their friends. I was just like,
He's hands
always
down
with that guy with a chip on my
athletic
shoulder. Like,
person
I want to
I've
be better than
seen
that guy. I want to.
with my own eyes. This kid has real NBA level athleticism.
Mac McClung was one of the most insane and exciting point guards the high school level has ever seen. From his dunks and unbelievable athletic ability to the way he could take over a game and single-handedly win it by himself, he was must-see TV. He blew up and came onto the scene out of nowhere. You had a guy that nobody heard about to only a couple of years later was getting millions of views on YouTube. Everyone was trying to see what all the hype was about. It got so bad that most of his games even sold out and they had to relocate sometimes. And then we can't forget to mention that rappers, including Drake himself, was DMing him when he was in high school trying to get a jersey from him. But after high school, his story takes a rough path. Out of nowhere, he started dealing with a lot of problems, and some of them were his fault, but some of them weren't. People then were questioning even if he's good enough to be where he's at. However, fast forward in time to our current date, in this most recent year, he's back on the come up and the rise again. What's good, y'all? I hope you're having a blessed day. Just wanted to drop by and say, if you like these story videos, I think y'all do, but drop a like if you want to see more. It helps let me know that this is the content you'd like to see. And if you're new to the channel, what are you doing? Join the family, hit the subscribe button, and leave a like for more. Now, without further ado, let's get into this story. Obviously, and probably by the title of this video, you can tell and infer that this will be the rise, fall, and rise again of Mac McClung. McClung is only 1 year older than me, and when I was in high school, I didn't watch too much Hoop Mixtape and Ball is Life videos ironically, but one guy I did watch was Mac McClung. He was really one of the only players I've ever watched and sat back and said, wow, that's incredible. To do what he was doing, to be undersized and jumping the way he could, it was something that's hard to believe. I didn't fall in love with the way he could jump or the way he could dunk like most people did, but what made me so attractive to his game and story is that he plays 100%, almost very similar to Russell Westbrook. And for my young hoopers out there, you gotta understand, some of you wish to be athletic and jump as high as him, and even though that's good, it's not gonna take you as far as you think. What separates Mac from other players in my eyes is that he plays ferocious and like it's his last game every single game he's out there. And I'm not just talking about high school, but I'm talking about college and every level he's played. In high school, everything was really sweet for him. In college, he did have a rough path, which we're going to get into, but it didn't matter. He still was giving it 100%, and you gotta respect the grind. I've did a lot of research for this video and started to study a lot of film on him, even though I knew who he was and I had some idea of what I was going to talk about. I wanted to get a better idea of how I was going to lay out this video for you guys. Before we get into this, let me know in the comment section what your favorite part about his game is, because I know some people like his dunks and the way he can jump, but I'm very curious. For me, like I said, it's how hard he plays. To get into Mac's story, you already know. We gotta throw it all the way back to where things started. Matthew Mac McClung, aka Mac McClung, was born on January 6 in 1999. He grew up in Gate City, Virginia, and this is a very small town with only roughly 2,000 people living in it. And when he was a kid and growing up, the sport that he played the most was football. It wasn't basketball. I believe in life that hustlers and competitors, or whatever word you want to use, they're not made, but they're born. It's something that you're born with. And for Mac, that was the case. It didn't matter what he was doing in life, he wanted to win, even as a kid. His dad even made a public statement and said Mac was just born with it. If you're fixing a bowl of cereal, he's going to make it a competition. That's what separates the great athletes from the good ones. Yeah, the good ones, they may be talented, but do they have that dog in them? Another fun fact to know is that his parents built in a basement gym in their own home, and Mac would use it so much that his dad had to put a restriction on the amount of times he could use it during the day. McClung had a sister named Anna, and he worked out so much that she couldn't even find time to go in there when he wasn't in there. If you're having to ban a kid from going to the gym so much, I think that's a great thing because he's got that grind. I'm sure most of you think McClung, by going off of his high school mixtapes, is this not cocky guy but very confident and he's always screaming, but he didn't start out that way. When he was going into 7th grade, this is when he really started to pick up basketball and take it serious. According to his mom, when he went to his first couple of practices, he didn't say much and he was quiet, but he grew out of it. And the more practices he began going to, the more he fell in love with it, and the more that he knew and his family knew basketball was his sport. There's not too much to say about his 7th grade year, but let's talk about 8th grade and one story that sticks out to me. When he was in 8th grade, his family took a trip to go snowboarding and skiing, and he broke his arm. For most athletes, when you break your arm or have an injury like that, you're normally going to be in the house for a couple of weeks to a couple of months, but you know where this is going. Mac, he wasn't going to do that. So instead of just sitting around and waiting till he got healed, he would go to the gym and work on his one-arm shooting form. And according to his father, that is how he became a good shooter, and that's how his shooting form improved. Because if you're a hooper, you know the best way to get your form the way you want it is to shoot with one arm. All throughout his 8th and 9th grade year, he was still a very average basketball player and nobody was talking about him. But that would quickly change. It wasn't until the summer after his 9th grade year when he first dunked. And according to Mac, here's what he had to say. It was kind of random. I was always decently athletic and I could jump higher than everyone. Just one day it snapped and I was windmilling and all that. I guess it just clicked. His 9th grade summer going into 10th grade was the start to the real Mac McClung show. His sophomore year is a piece to the story that somewhat gets left out, and I can see why, but it's still worthy of talking about. He didn't do anything extraordinary his 10th grade year, but it was getting him ready for his breakout seasons. I like to label a player's 9th and 10th grade year as their warm-up years, but by your junior year, that's when you gotta turn up, and he did just that. And let me make this clear, there's so much to talk about in Mac's junior and senior season, so I can't touch on everything, but I'm going to touch on some of the things that I think are most important. And for starters, how about on February 24th in 2017, as a junior, he scored his career high of 64 points. 64 points in a single game, I don't even know what to say about that. What a performance. And at the same time too, this is when Max Preps and many other companies like that have labeled him officially as the most exciting player in the country. He was blowing up everywhere. You couldn't get on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube and not see this guy. He was known for his acrobatic and athletic ability, but a part of his game that gets no love was his shooting ability. The dude could light it up. He wasn't just shooting average and normal threes in high school, but he was shooting some from the volleyball line. For his junior season though, when it came to an end, he wound up finishing with 29 points per game, 5.5 assists, and 3 steals per game. His games were so exciting to watch because he was gonna put on a show, but he was also getting chants from the other crowd and other fans. They were calling him overrated and a ball hog and selfish, but he didn't let it affect him. This is when our story doesn't heat up like it will in a minute, but it starts to get slightly more interesting. So after his 11th grade year, he decided to commit to Rutgers. But after only 1 week, he decommitted and committed to Georgetown, and that's where he stayed at. I'm going to talk about his senior year just a little because I think most of you know how it goes, so I don't want to bore you with all of that. And plus too, we have a lot to get into and we're not even close to being done. There's so many places to start, but how about in his first game as a senior, he dropped 47 points and went 18 of 23 from the field. Scoring 47 points and only missing 5 shots, that's efficient. If you weren't impressed with that, how about this one? Only 1 month after dropping 47 points, an opposing coach told him, "You're going to Georgetown to sit," and he responded by scoring 44 points. He was unstoppable and he broke the single season scoring record that was held by Allen Iverson, so that's some great company to be in. And to wrap up his senior career, he scored 47 points in the championship game and led his team to a 80-65 win. As good as our story's been so far and as good as his high school career was, this is where things start to go downhill. Coming out of high school, he was only looked at as a 3-star recruit, and he was coming in at roughly, and this is according to ESPN, 6'2" and 175 pounds. Some would say it's disrespectful to have him as only a 3-star, but I don't really have a problem with it. I think he should be a 4-star, so it's okay. I don't think he should have been a 5-star, so when you're talking about a 3/4-star recruit, it's all the same thing. none of that matters when you get to college. What we're about to get into is without a doubt the most intriguing part about Mac McClung's story, and it's somewhat mind-boggling because it has its ups and it has its downs. As a freshman going into Georgetown, people thought he was going to have to sit and pay his dues, but he was playing big minutes right away. He had a lot of great games, but he also had some games that weren't so good, but that's typical of a freshman. But very early on in December of 2018, he had 38 points and a 102-94 win. And for his freshman season, he averaged 13 points per game, 2 assists, and 2.6 rebounds, so I'd say that's very solid. He led all of the freshmen in the Big East Conference in scoring, and he was also named to the Big East All-Freshman team. His overall field goal percentage was right at 39, and his three-point percentage was under 28. If you're looking at his stats and the percentages, yeah, it could have been better, but he looked good on film, and sometimes you gotta base it off of that. I still think he had a good year, but let's get into his second year, and this is where chaos starts to happen. His second year at Georgetown was even better than his first year, but he was battling a lot of injury problems. He sustained a foot injury in a game, and he missed action from January 28th to February 19th, so that's almost a month. But then when he tried to come back and play on a game in February 19th, he re-hurt it, so he had to sit out even longer. It was a tricky injury, and I think foot injuries always are, because sometimes you feel like you're ready to come back, but your body's not. And what hurt him even more is that he came back too early after that 3-week span, and he tweaked it even more. His foot injury literally crippled him the entire second half of the season, and it was a situation where even his doctor said even if he does return, he'll probably never be 100%. I'm sure he's 100% now, but he was talking about at the time. Throughout this time too, Georgetown, they were a good team, at least when Mac was playing, but they also had other injuries on the team. Were they the best team? No, they were mediocre and average in their conference. But their problem in that second year for Mac is that they were never healthy. I feel like if they were healthy, they could have won some more games. McClung only got to play in 21 games in his sophomore season, which was the year 2019 through 20, and he was impressive. He averaged 15.7 points per game, 2.4 assists, and 3.1 rebounds. His overall field goal percentage was slightly lower than what you'd want it to be, but it was okay, it was doable, it was right at 39%. And for his three-point percentage, he did bump that up, and that was a great sign. He got it to 32.3. Obviously, if you've kept up with Mac at all, you'll know that he left Georgetown, but what was the reason behind that? Even when he was playing and doing good, there was a lot of animosity in the coaching staff with the players. I even remember turning on ESPN and just going on social media, and you'd hear rumors about McClung wasn't happy. I guess you could say that those rumors at the time, they weren't just rumors, but they were the truth. Before he transferred though, he put his name into the NBA draft, and some people thought he'd stay in there, but he pulled it out and decided to enter the transfer portal. I don't like to throw in rumors in my videos, so let's go by a quote that Mac McClung said himself about him transferring. Quote unquote, "It was a number of different events that made me feel like I had no choice but to transfer from Georgetown. I really wanted to stay, but things throughout my career made me realize that I couldn't. I'm looking for a place I can call home, a place I can be part of a family and help them succeed." Going off of his words, I think that was a very respectful way to say that he doesn't want to even be associated with Georgetown. I could sit up here and talk about for hours as to why he probably transferred, but you get the point. He didn't want to be there, so he left. The only thing I'm going to say about the matter is that a lot of people around McClung said he didn't like his role on the team and he didn't like their style of play. Why didn't McClung give an answer and talk about basketball in any of his statements? Well, it had something to do with him wanting a waiver of eligibility from the NCAA. If he would have went out on ESPN or even on social media and bashed Georgetown and said why he didn't want to be there, he probably wouldn't have got to play in his next season. If some of you are confused, what I'm talking about is that in college, at least when Mac was in there, you had to get a waiver eligibility to transfer and play in the same season, or else you'd have to sit a year. So that's why he wasn't throwing Georgetown under the bus, and he was handling it in a respectful manner. It paid off because the NCAA, they granted him his waiver eligibility, and he got to play the following season at Texas Tech. There was a lot of teams and programs wanting him, but yeah, he decided to go there. When it was first announced, I thought this, and looking back on it, I still believe this, but Texas Tech was the perfect fit for him. It was a high-paced offense and a coach that would die for his players, and that's what Mac needs. And at the same time too, this was a year which will be his junior season, but a lot of people were doubting Mac, and he needed to have a good year to shut up the haters and prove that he was the star that he was in high school. I watched a lot of Texas Tech's games this year, and the only reason was because I wanted to see how he was playing. Before I say anything, I will critique him a little. One thing I did notice in a lot of his games is that he forces shots sometimes to get himself going. Here's the thing though, it looks good when they're going in, but if they're not going in, he can go on a stretch where he misses 3 to 4 or even 5 shots in a row. I would have liked to see McClung take more of a point guard role that he really is and pass more and then start shooting. It's hard to even say what I just said because at the same time, you want a guy in a point guard who's going to go out there and get you buckets, and that's what McClung was going to do. In 29 games played, he put up impressive numbers. He averaged 15.5 points per game, 2.7 rebounds and 2 assists, and shot 42% from the field. You gotta throw in there too that he was playing in one of the best basketball conferences in the entire country. No disrespect to Georgetown and their conference, but I think the Big 12 is slightly better. When you look at the stats though, all of his numbers increased. His field goal percentage and even his 3-point percentage went up to a great 34.3%. I don't want to call him a streaky player because he wasn't inconsistent, but he had his games, and if you're a Texas Tech fan, you're going to know what I'm talking about, where some nights he'd go out there and you'd think, man, this is the best player in the country, but in other nights, he would be average. So when you even out all of his bad and good performances, you got, I don't think a outstanding basketball player, but you had a very good one. And I'm talking about the college level. And when his 1 year at Texas Tech came to an end, I think most of you know this, but he decided to enter the NBA draft. Unfortunately, but this was expected, he did go undrafted, but he just recently signed a contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. And now that brings us up to the current time and current date of our story, but also the rise again of Mac McClung. If you're curious and you want to check it out, McClung's playing in the Summer League and he's already had a game with 6 points off the bench and a game with 11 points. So not a bad start, especially coming off of the bench. Just because the Lakers have signed him to the Summer League, that doesn't mean they're going to sign him to the official roster, and I don't know how they're going to find any space with all the people they've been signing in free agency. But for the sake of this video, let's say McClung somehow makes the roster. He's basically Alex Caruso 2.0. They're very similar, they both can shoot, and they're both known for their jumping and athletic ability and their dunks. And another way they're similar is that their fan base is crazy, and wherever they go, they're gonna have fans. They're some of the most, and I'm talking about Caruso and McClung, them two guys are the most likable guys out there. We've really covered all the questions and covered everything about his life story, but there's still some unanswered questions that we need to get in the future. Is McClung good enough to be an NBA player, or is he just going to be a G League player? Could he be a role player, or could he be an all-star player one day? I think he's good enough to be on a roster and even a valuable 6th, 7th, or 8th man. A lot of NBA teams don't feel the same way though, obviously because he went undrafted, so he just needs his shot. Let me know your opinion on Mac McClung and let me know your thoughts on this story, but that is the rise, fall, and rise again of Mac McClung. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you can and you made it to this point, feel free to leave a like, it means a lot. I spent a lot of time on this video, researching, editing, so helps out the channel. And if you're new, hit that subscribe button. With all that being said, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you're new to the channel, what are you doing? Join the family, hit that subscribe button, and leave a like for more. And as always, let's be great. I'm out, y'all. Peace.